Maxim Vengerov este un artist ce se bucură de recunoaștere la nivel internațional, atât prin instrumentul care l-a consacrat, vioara, dar și în calitate de dirijor. Este apreciat în unanimitate drept unul dintre cei mai pricepuți muzicieni ai lumii, câștigător al unui premiu Grammy și unul dintre cei mai căutați profesori. Publicul bucureștean a putut să-l urmărească în dublă ipostază, violonist și dirijor. Maxim Vengerov, it's a great pleasure and honor to have you here in Bucharest and at the Enescu Festival. How is it for you to be back?
Always pleasure to be back here again in the city of Enescu, in the city where one of my favorite publics comes from. Here, Bucharest is the city with full of tradition, and indeed this Enescu Festival is a legendary event. And always when I come here, I look forward. When I have the invitation, I always think about it and prepare myself mentally, because it's a great excitement.
Because you talked about tradition, you come from a musical family and a musical household, and I'll take you back a bit to your beginning. Your father was the first oboe in the Novosibirsk Philharmonic, your mother conducted choirs. Was there any moment or any doubt that you'll do music in your life?
Quite frankly, I didn't know anything better than music. Music was my life, and if you think about take into account that during Soviet Union in 1970s there was not much else to do other than to take interest in music, arts, sports, and all the wonderful great things that created alternative during this troubled time during the Soviet Union. So I was in a way very lucky that I didn't have too much choice. Would I grow today? I would have too much choice because of internet, because of so many other possibilities. But I think my fate was really to become a musician, and I didn't escape it and didn't want to escape it. What is really astounding is that at the age of 5, when people ask me what I want to become when I grow up, I, without any doubt, always said musician. I always knew, even when I was 5 and 6 and 7, and this will to become a musician was growing ever so greater and bigger in me. I was thinking, music is a bit of a mission. If you're standing in front of people, playing for them, it's a responsibility, and every responsibility is a mission. So you owe to deliver great emotions to the public, and what could be so greater than that? And of course, there's an amazing, incredible, great deal of preparation towards that, but it's all worth it once you're on stage.
You chose your mission, might I say, wisely. How did you choose your weapon, your instrument of choice, the violin?
Inside my soul, in my heart, I call myself a pacifist. But my weapon is the violin, is music. The music is my tool of expression, and with that pacific tool, weapon, if I may say, I'm ever so grateful that I have this mean of communication to people, whether other people may not have that. Because with words, you can express only so much, and words can be interpreted differently. But as musician, we are always learning to listen. And listening is not only helping you in music, but also in life. We listen to people's intonation, the way they speak, not what they say necessarily, but what the tone with which they express themselves. And I think this is the greatest privilege to be a musician, because it tunes you emotionally, spiritually, in every way, and also this connection with the physical body. Music is not something stratospheric that one cannot touch. It is there. What we cannot see is what goes beyond music, these emotions and these vibrations, this electricity that we transmit, the musicians. And that is the greatest art, to learn how to operate with these vibrations.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. But was there a moment in your life when you saw the violin and you said, this is what I want to do, and not anything else?
Well, my initial thought was that I wanted to do something good. And I thought if I would become a president of the country, then I definitely can make a change. So this dream didn't realize, thank God, I'm out of politics. Music is out of politics. But with the concert, I can make a little change to the sometimes big change in the audience. If they come today and they do not feel so well, not so positive, they may go, and they should go after the concert, totally transformed. And that's the change that we do short term, but also long term. If you think about the effect that music, the lasting effect that music has on people, can be really dramatic. It can change people, it can change their behavior, it can change their thinking. And we are, after all, what we think. We are what we eat, we are what we drink, but we're also mental element of the body, of the soul, is very important. We tend to ignore that often, but thoughts materialize, and whatever we can do with the concert, people can forget. It's like a emotional and spiritual cleansing, where you submit yourself to another energy, someone that gives you different energy, and you embrace that, and you become that. You become Beethoven, you become Tchaikovsky, you become Enescu, and with the correct, the right the delivery of the energy that can have a long-lasting effect on people.
Your young life is somewhat similar to Enescu's. A child prodigy, you left your hometown relatively early on to go study and then eventually to go west. How difficult was it to reinvent yourself, and you keep doing that in your life?
We have incredible examples of amazing musicians that were before us, before our generation. 2, 3, 4 generations before us, and we could just name a few personalities like my Russian idol Rachmaninoff, who was not only a fabulous, amazing pianist, but also great composer and conductor. Now, when we talk about violinists, for me, the greatest example is Enescu, and very often underestimated figure still, because I don't know anyone, any other personality who has been so concentrated in every field and so good. The quality with which he played the violin, it's really to admire. Also, pianist, we know that he was a great pianist, as great as he was a violinist. He was a front runner to become New York Philharmonic chief conductor, and his symphonic works and Oedipus, his opera, and his chamber works, you name it, anything he touched turned to gold always. So this musical soul, for me, this is the greatest example, and this the bar is so high that I probably will never be able to reach even a half of what he has achieved. This is a true miracle. But it's great to have such personalities like Enescu in our life. It makes us humble. It makes us always want to be hungry to embrace the world, but also to be content that we're part of the greatest tradition. We're following something. So when you grow, and you want to invent something out of nowhere, you don't have you're not part of this tree. You don't know the roots. And it's important to know where the roots are. And my roots are definitely in the old tradition of violin playing. Menuhin, who was also he was a student of Enescu, and David Oistrakh, and Jascha Heifetz, our tradition. So from the point of composing, we can also see where Enescu comes from, how he was influenced by the Germanic school and the French school. So for me, Enescu is the world to admire, is the planet that I probably will never reach. But it's great to have this admiration. And that makes me always want to reinvent myself. And every day where I didn't learn anything probably is a waste. But we always learn. If we plant a seed and we want to be students for the rest of our lives, we're tuned, we're predestined to grow. And I think that's the most important thing, is the journey. It's not what you achieve, it's the journey.
The journey is a fabulous part of life, and doing what you like is a fabulous part of life. You're also the violinist, you're a conductor, but you are also a teacher. How is music education today compared to when you started?
Today everything is different. As I mentioned, and always tell my students, we have too much choice today. If we don't become musicians, we become something else. And that's great. But there is another side to it, like a different, another side of the coin. Sometimes if we don't have the choice, we go for it. Our concentration, we put everything in one point. All our efforts, all our energy goes to one point. And that's what happened in my life, in my childhood. I didn't have other choices, and I didn't want to have them. And I was even afraid of thinking there are other things. But then at a certain point, I remember I was 16. By that time, I stopped studying with two of my professors, Galina Turchaninova and renowned Professor Braun. Then all of a sudden I was alone with no teachers and didn't want to have, because 11 years of studying the violin was enough for me. By that time I could play most of the greatest violin concertos, including Tchaikovsky and Paganini and all the Mozarts and stuff. I was left in the choice, where do I go from here? I can play the violin, I quite enjoy it, but I'm missing something. I want to build something. I want to build on top of what I've built already, and I started very early. I started at the age of 4 years and 8 months, to be exact, because my first concert took place in Siberia, in my hometown, when I was 5. And at 5.5 I played already with orchestra. So you can imagine that from the age of 5 to 16, these 11 years, it's a life itself. And the concentration with which I practiced, it wouldn't be possible today. If I grew up in Europe, there are other things that you must look at, But in Siberia, I was working for 7-8 hours a day. Good or bad, doesn't matter. At the age of 16, I was a grown-up man facing the challenge. Where do I go from here? I won the Karl Flesch competition. I studied with 2 of the best professors. What do I do? And I said to myself, I give myself a year being completely alone. I locked myself literally in the apartment. I took a lot of scores, not violin sonatas, nothing of that. I took conducting scores. And with the teacher, I started to go inside the symphonies, learning the structure, profound knowledge of harmony, analyzing the works, comparing all the CDs that I'm listening. For instance, I would put Beethoven 5 and I would listen to 5 or 6 different recordings, comparing the different interpretations, hearing one from Celibidache, another one from Karajan and Abbado, and so on. And I think this year it was a sort of a little bit of detachment from the violin, which gave me another dimension, which opened me up. And I saw, wow, there is a greater world, there is another dimension in this, not only to my violin playing. And I started opening up, and that's how I got to know. Then later I took the conducting classes and indeed studied 9 years with Professor Maestro Simonov. I studied viola, I played viola, I even experimented with the electric violin. I just wanted to broaden my horizons.
But you made me curious with one thing. What did you play on the electric violin? What kind of music?
At the point when I was 30, again, there was a moment of rebellion. Something came out of me, and I couldn't stop that. So that needed some resolution. And so in music, I decided to start improvising, learning a bit of jazz with the great jazz violinist Didier Lockwood, and also rock. I was really, really stunned by, Jimi Hendrix and, people like this. These electric guitars. I remember I bought this huge amplifier. I put it at home. I connected to the 5-string Violectra electric violin, and I just started improvising, changing different modes and colors. And that gave me great inspiration, also for when I play now major concertos, conventional concertos, Tchaikovsky. Somehow that that comes through these colors. They can, because music is all interconnected. Art is all interconnected. But that was a phase of my life when I was 30. So that was the rebellion, Maxim, with music. On the other side, I dyed my hair blonde, and I wanted to put an earring in my ear. And then I remember I came for a regular lesson with Maestro Rostropovich, and he saw me with the earrings and he said, "My God, what happened to you?" And his eyes, So I think as a hungry soul, as myself, as a musician, I needed to experiment. But then after a while, I went back to realization that I'm classical. I don't want to detach away from the roots because there is no need. But I have been given a blessing, a choice to wander around, and then have freedom to come back at my own time when I want it.
This year we have the pleasure of seeing you, the two sides of you, the violin player and also the conductor. You'll be performing Enescu's ballad for violin and orchestra. What does this piece mean to you?
First of all, I must say openly, it's the biggest tragedy for all the violinists that Enescu never wrote violin concerto. For the greatest composer that he was, if I was alive next to him, I would beg him, please, Giorgio, please write a concerto, because that's absolute loss for us. So, but we have this wonderful ballad. It's a young Enescu. It's an early opus. It's a very beautiful ballad song with the orchestra, and from that beautiful, charming composition, we will open the concert with the Monte-Carlo Philharmonic, my home orchestra. I do live in Monte-Carlo, and very regularly I collaborate with this marvelous orchestra. Last year I had a residency with them, both as a conductor and a violinist, and we worked a number of times, like 7 or 8 times together, both in Monte-Carlo and on tour.